take your questions now. Kings and Queens, we're going to take your questions. So if you have a question, I'd like for you to raise your hand in the chat. You should have a button there that says raise hand, and then we can come to you and get your question. Normally I'll ask a couple questions to open up the thing, but it's something to 10 now, and so we're gonna just get you all in straight away, Kings and Queens. My questions can wait. You are most important. So I see Pat Green has her hand up, and Warren Alexander Dean. Now Pat Green had her hand up from basically the beginning of Sister Esther's presentation. So I'm just clarifying if Pat Green is actually wanting to ask a question, or that was a mistake. So if you are wanting to ask a question, Pat Green, feel free to unmute yourself now and ask a question. Pat Green? We can't hear Pat Green. Now Pat Green is unmuted, but we can't hear. All right, we're gonna keep it. 1 second. I heard something there, sir. Right, the wrong thing. That was like a motorbike. Okay, we're gonna go on to Warren Alexander Dean.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, my dear brother.
Good evening, my brother. Feel free to ask a question.
Yeah, more strength to you. First of all, obviously one wants to big up the panel for the contributions, especially Sister Josiah. Brilliant introduction and summary. I actually posted something on that, so I won't go too much into that. A little bit just touching on what I actually posted was it seems to me it's very important that we stick focused on the subject matter, and the subject matter came in with reparations, Black power, and the Black Lives Movement. And with regards to probably what took place first in terms of the Black Power movement, one of the things that we have done and we've kind of fallen for globally as a community is widening the message that we're sending out. So we take the emphasis of Black people. This was first done with Martin Luther King, for example, with regards to the civil rights movement, and which was talking about Black civil rights, and then it was moved to human rights. We saw the Black Power movement itself, which is one of the themes of your discussion tonight, changed into people power, if you remember the Black Panthers. And I think we must really, really here stick on the subject of Black people, the Black race, and our issues of the dehumanization that has been done to us, which is the worst thing that has happened in this universe, which is something against the nature of the universe, and constantly promote that. With regards to, if I may just finish with the Black Lives Matter particularly, I think we need to initiate, as it were, our own movement with regards to that, perhaps using the hashtag Black Lives Matter, spelled BLAXK, and then LIVE, and then matter, MATTER, as a hashtag, and also explain and put out a press release that makes it quite clear, and also shows the support for that press release behind it, that we do not support the existing Black Lives Matter campaign. Obviously, the existing campaign, I've looked at it and I thought, why have they got this publicity? I remember it with a fella called D-Ray, just vaguely his name, you know, that was involved from the very early sort of, 2012, 2013, and this hashtag. And if you remember in 2015, the hashtag, which was a wonderful thing for us. I mean, I just thought, oh, it gave me goosebumps. I just thought, oh, Black people were doing something. We were in the media a few times for some things that we've done. And the Black Lives Matter was really very much one, because the hashtag went to #1 globally, just the Black Lives Matter hashtag. And we must pat ourselves on the back with regard to that as an achievement. It is something that is outstanding. And I'm sure most Black people got behind it at that point. But I think subsequently we have learned that, there is this emphasis on, not that one is against it, but there's an emphasis on the exclusion of Black men. There's an emphasis, which is terrible, which is on the promotion of homosexuality. And again, not that one is against homosexuality or the issue of it. I don't want to get into that, because I think we do that too much very often in terms of, condemning or putting things down rather than just creating our own. However, this homosexuality thing is part of the Black genocide agenda, which is to say so much as
My brother, sorry, you did say you had a question. And I'm not.
I said I had none. I said I had no question.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said you did.
At the beginning. No, I said I had no questions, sir, at the beginning, my dear brother.
I apologize.
You're fine, sir. You're fine. I just wanted to say.
Having said that, though, bro, I am going to ask you to land.
The time restriction.
Certainly.
I just want to say that with the Black Lives Matter, one of the key things is this homosexuality. It goes against the Black agenda. If we all became homosexual tomorrow, i.e. all Black people on the planet, there'd be genocide. We'd be extinct within about 50 to 70 years. The money from Black Lives Matter goes towards the United States Democratic Party in default if you donate money to it. I've heard 113 or so million mentioned as donations. I thought it was more than that, i.e. 1.3 billion that has been donated to them. But we need to attract those donations, and we need to approach companies with regards to that. So I've put that on, and I've actually put it on the comment section that we really need to do something. So I will not take up any more time with regards to that. Thank you for the presentation, and we will work very, very hard. I think we need to make gotkushTV not even the equivalent of the Roland Martin show or anything like that, because I don't like those things where, no, I don't like those things. The criticism I have of that shows this introduction of the begging donations, don't like that, for example. And I also think that if we're doing things, that we should do it in a generic way. Let's have Black TV. I'm not even in support of the Oprah Winfrey show. If the Oprah Winfrey show was the Black television show, it would make such a bigger point if it was like, Black Entertainment Network. Is that all right, sir?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much, my brother, for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much for the for what you've done to bring this thing together. More strength to you and everybody who's participated. More strength.
I did mean to say, Sister Esther's quote. She quoted from the Assaja for Kwame Nkrumah, and the essay that she quoted from is actually contained in this book called "The Struggle Continues." By Kwame Nkrumah. I believe it's the second chapter. I need to check. But there's also a book in here called, a chapter in there called "The Spectre of Black Power" as well. So I just wanted to point that out for anybody who wants to do further research. You know what I'm saying? Because that's very, very important. You've got a lot of sources for further information. So we're just adding to that. Right. Next up, we have Melanated Goddess, my sister from across the waters, the US of the A. Greetings, sis.
Peace, Brother Shakara. Peace to the panelists, and I truly enjoyed the presentation. So my question, I'm one of many people in America that actually don't fall under the ADOS category. So my question is, what are like the efforts to connect with all of us non-ADOS diasporans over here in America so that we can support some of the efforts for reparations that to incorporate our diasporan lineage. So we want to be able to support and connect with all of the diasporans and the other efforts towards reparations. And no slight to my African American brothers and sisters who are in pursuit of their own reparation efforts. However, those efforts do exclude us. So we would like to partner with people of the diaspora who have a more inclusive movement towards reparations.
Beautiful, beautiful question, Sister Melanated. I'm gonna open that to the panel. So Brother Leo, Sister Esther, Sister Jendai, feel free to respond.
I do think, greetings, thank you for the question. I do think it's best answered by Sister Esther, because the Stop the Mangamizi campaign, the Pan-African Reparations Coalition in Europe, has a long history from its beginning of aligning, building alliedship and partnerships with movements across 3 or 4 continents. So this is the bit that we don't often see and recognize. It's something that we're elevating in terms of people's knowledge and awareness of this on the 1st of Messiah through our movements of internationalist solidarity grounding space for Pan-African liberation. I just thought I needed to say that because it's not just about us here. We are 3% as African heritage people in the UK. If we did not begin to build these alliances and have this cross-continental working, we would not have made the efforts that we have now through the work of Sister Esther and those that came before her as well. So I just wanted to promote that international aspect of what's happening this coming Saturday up by Max Roach Park for people to engage in the groundings that are happening up there. And I will stop there and perhaps Sister Esther can come in now.
I think you've probably said quite a bit, Sister Jendai. The key thing is that there are some tendencies in the USA which are more internationalist, but these are the voices and Pan-Africanist or whatever, they are more inclusive of our people, global experience, but these are not the ones that often get promoted, and certainly not the ones that the corporate white stream media are amplifying. But one thing I would say about the movement in the UK, and I love saying this to people because it's very unique. The movement here is extremely unique. It is really the only movement outside of the continent of Africa that it truly is so inclusive of all of us. And a lot of it is to do with our settlement here as people of various African heritages, whatever we call ourselves, and that we've always had a Pan-African thrust in the UK. The dominant organizing tradition leading up to, in particular, I'd say the 20th century so-called, was Pan-Africanism. And so, and the people who were the early advocates of reparations in this country came directly from Africa, were trafficked through various parts of the Caribbean. So technically, maybe they could have called themselves Caribbean at one stage, I don't know. Were taken to different parts of the so-called Americas and ended up here. And so what we've had is, because of our demographics and where we're so small in number, we've had to find commonalities across what we perceive to be our differences. So it's always been very Pan-Caribbean, Pan-African, Black international, yeah, the movement here. And it's never about reparations for, I have really not heard people say reparations for Black people in Britain. It just doesn't really exist in people's consciousness and psyche. At the same time, we are connected into movements in the States, like in COBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, that does have an International Affairs Commission. There is also something called INASAR, the International Network of Scholars and Activists for African Reparations, that is bringing together many different people working, organizing for reparations all around the world. So that in itself is, you know, and we don't always agree with each other. Sometimes we have conflicts with each other, but because we've created a space where we can have dialogue, where we can reason, we can challenge politely on the basis of knowledge and experience. So there are various initiatives happening that are creating more inclusive spaces to hear from and include, as it were, the different strategies and tactics and aspirations of various of our people. So, you know, let us find a way to connect at some level. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Sister Esther, Sister Jendai. I'm going to go on to Empress Judah.
Thank you, and Asante Sana to Sister Esther Stanford for a very informative and educational presentation this evening. I didn't hear it right from the beginning, but I heard quite a bit, and I just wanted to ask the question if Esther Stanford knows anything about I think the state of the African race diaspora.
Yeah.
If I could just quickly say, the reason I ask is because the Galaxy Radio, which is very supportive of the march and has been for a number of years, one of their presenters gave to the listening audience information about the Christie's action. So myself and another brother, we went to Christie's. It was a very small gathering. And the individual that I spoke to at the time didn't seem familiar with the work of the March August. So I just wondered whether they'd made contact with yourselves, because I did identify yourselves to I think there was 3 of them, in fact. One of them actually, when I looked at her detail, was actually an MBE, which I thought was a bit unusual, but perhaps, you know, she's going to relook at that as well, because when you're talking about self-repairs, it's how we have our relationship with various authorities. So yeah, I was just wondering, Sister Esther, if you could just perhaps say a bit about them. Are they working with you this year, or the march?
Yeah, perhaps Sister Jendai could confirm, but I don't believe so. I've not had any contact with these people at all. I've heard of them, but I haven't had any direct engagement or what have you. I'm not sure if Sister Jendai, you know, because
nothing to add.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if I could just quickly say before I finish my point, I think it's so important. I mean, there's been individual activists even before the march actually took off to the extent it has, which is excellent. But I think what is so key, as you said, and what I gather from your presentation, is that we can have this working unity. So I will just remind them, as I've been using other social platforms, I have the contact of a individual, because there was only, I think, 3 of them that were actually part of that organization, State of the African Race State of the African Diaspora. I shall remind them anyway, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they turn up. So again, thank you so much, and I shall continue to inform people, and hopefully there'll be the lockdown as we all
sure. Thank you. Can I just say on the point, although I maybe shouldn't get into it here, but I have to because it's come up, on the state of the African diaspora, which I am aware of. I've been involved in various stuff around the AU 6th region, because we are in the diaspora, part of the 6th region of Africa. Now, some of us, and I was one of the people representing PARCO, the Pan-African Reparations Coalition in Europe, working with people like Dr. Beryl Beekman, who is part of a lot of the African AU 6th region diaspora initiatives, wrote an open letter in relation to the state of the African diaspora. And so that, I won't go into it here, but one of the things that people need to know, and this is where I gave that quote in my presentation about the different visions. So yes, technically we should all be together, of course, but what we're also seeing is that there is an agenda, a very sophisticated agenda of counterinsurgency in our movement, and has always been.
Okay.
And we know that's been in every movement, so we'd be really naive to think it wasn't in this current phase.
Yes.
And part of that state of the African diaspora,
yes,
it has counterinsurgency elements to it. I'm not saying everybody.
Say that. I agree. I agree.
Okay, so I didn't want to get into that here. I didn't want to get into it here. People can Google it, and people should know that the Prime Minister is somebody called Louis Georges Tan, and just please Google him. I won't get into it any further. Okay, you can find out for yourself.
Wonderful, thank you. And can I just be crystal clear here? As a committed community activist, it was because I'm asking on the basis of the first I heard of them was about like 3 weeks ago. And I've been involved in reparations for years. And I was just surprised that if you're serious about reparations, even if they only arrived, as he said, in the organization last October, they really should have done a bit more research to familiarize themselves. So I hear what you're saying, and thank you for answering that concern.
In a kind of cryptic way, because it will just open up another kind of...
it's there now, it's been said, and yes, people can make of it what they may. So yes, again, thank you. Asante Santa.
I want to send a special shout out to everyone who's thoroughly confused in the chat right about now.
I did say people can Google it.
No worry about
listen, no. Okay, can I just say in a very quick way, right? One of the things that is going on in the international social movement for African reparations is that our unity, we know, is our power, and we know that throughout the generations they've always tried to disrupt that. And what we have seen in Europe is a counterinsurgency by way of funding structures, just like we talked about the BLM funding, which are designed to build a new cadre of leadership that has, takes the movement somewhere else. But the more these structures get profile and recognition and resourcing, is the more attractive they become to ordinary people who think that, well, this is obviously a good thing, but if you don't realize that it's part of an agenda that involves CIA, MI5, MI6, and some of us know it very well, okay? That's all I can really say on this platform.
Point taken. I was able to read between the lines. I was conscious of the fact that a lot of people in the chat, may not have been, so yeah, we give thanks for that clarity right there. But my dad, when I was growing up, my dad used to say this thing quite often. He said, the white man, having dominated us in oppression, will seek to control us in our liberation. So yeah, it's very, very important. And this concept of movement capturing is extremely present, extremely present right about now. And the reality is we don't have the resources to combat it as efficiently as we would like, but it's necessary to raise awareness in the first, as a first line of attack. Kings and Queens, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. If you've got a question, please raise your hands, or if you want to make a statement, please raise your hand. There was another sister I believe I saw with a raised hand before, but she seems to have disappeared. Here we go. Right, so Jennifer Harris, it is your time. Feel free to unmute your mic. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Greetings everyone, and thank you for a very illuminating presentation from all the speakers. I thank you. What I wanted to ask was, in terms of the sort of revolution approach, I know in the past with the apartheid movement, they had boycotts. Are there any strategies in place in terms of divesting or reclaiming the land? So that's to any one of the people that presented this evening. So I'll keep it very brief.
Jedediah, Brother Leo, you can come in here.
Greetings, sister. Thank you so much for the question. In terms of divesting or reclaiming the land, you see, again, it's really about our unity. even on the continent itself, the African brothers and sisters in terms of the population, of course, they outnumber the governments, who oftentimes are in the pocket of the foreign governments, be it France or England or America or whatever. But the populations themselves, the ordinary people at the grassroots level, and even in the so-called class differences that they create, the middle class and so on and so forth, they have the powers, the people who have the power. And the people are quite capable, in truth, of coming together and divesting those small power brokers of the power that they currently wield in terms of controlling the masses of the people. But oftentimes it seems that people don't realize their power. They don't realize what they have if they would come together from a grassroots level. And so it's perfectly feasible for that to happen, sister, for people to actually reclaim land, to reclaim property, and so on and so forth. But it means a unified approach. It means that the people have to make a determination to unite. And you know, this language revolution, I remember somebody asked Malcolm X about revolution. He said, don't talk to me about revolution if you don't appreciate or understand that in revolution, you may have to get rid of some of your relatives. You may have to deal with some of the people within our own ranks, because revolution is a complete change. It's a total change. It's turning from one direction to another direction. And so rather than an insurrection type of revolution where we are trying to use arms against the governments or things of that nature, we are more at this time promoting the revolution here. It's about a different type of thinking. It's about realizing first and foremost that we do actually possess the power. Collectively, we have power. And once we realize that and we begin to work together, and unity is not easy. I often use the example of a marriage. And I'm a married man, and some of you will be married. And, you know, marriage is very difficult. It is very difficult. And there is no such thing as a marriage that doesn't have to weather storms. And it's when you weather storms in a marriage, it's when you go through difficulties and you come out the other side and you remain together, that actually proves your marriage. It proves that you are indeed united and that you are going somewhere together. Well, the same principle applies in unity. And unfortunately, we talk unity, but we rarely try it, in the sense that as soon as there is a little dispute or an argument or some difference or whatever, we tend to break apart and go our separate ways. And we can never, ever then progress to the point where we actually achieve the goals in a unified way. And so, you know, it's perfectly feasible for us to reclaim and divest those who possess, but it means that we have to do it in a unified way. I hope that helps a little bit in terms of an answer.
Thank you very much, Sister Jennifer. We're gonna leave it a few minutes for anybody else who wants to ask a question. Feel free to raise your hand in the chat. Yeah, so hit the raise your hand button. When I see you, I will come to you. I want to ask the panel a question though, that is related to a popular issue that was alluded to in Sister Esther's presentation, and that is our relationship with the Jewish community. Yeah, and I'm speaking on this now because obviously there has been a few very public instances of you know, of Africans being labeled anti-Semitic, yeah, recently. One we know of, well, I mean, Minister Farrakhan has always been called anti-Semitic for the last 30-something years. Then we have Nick Cannon recently in America, and he had an interview with a rabbi, yeah, and I don't know if anybody has seen that interview, but it was a masterclass in power and subjugation and propaganda. You know, it's worthy of case study, right? That's that interview alone. And then recently, the godfather of grime, our very own Wiley, yeah, the godfather of grime went on a Twitter rampage, licking out against, or well, I say licking out against, but speaking on the Jewish role within the music industry and black music, and saying that basically them man, they are not the real Jews. The real Jews are black people, and the people them come out to the people them land in Palestine. Yeah, and so he's been labeled anti-Semitic. And so there is this whole thing about you know, us being insensitive towards Jewish suffering. And I want to know, in the context of the fact that we know that there were Jews, the Jewish community played a significant role in our enslavement process, yeah? How should we as African people, from a reparations perspective, a reparatory justice perspective, respond when we are met with these charges from members of the Jewish community?
I don't mind going first. I think we have to start by telling the truth, brother. And if you go to the book of Revelations, chapter 3, verse 9, it says, "Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which they say they are Jews, and they are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee." Now, you know, brother, I think it was, is it Chancellor Williams who wrote Stolen Legacy?
No, that was George G.M. James.
George G.M. James.
Chancellor Williams is Destruction of Black Civilization.
Okay. Well, you know, brother, part of the reason for this need for reparations is because our identity as a people has been stolen. We are the real children of Israel. We are the real Muslims. We are the real people of God. But we have a lot of people today. We are the real Christians. Jesus or Yeshua or Isa, he goes by many names, that was a revolutionary black man. And the Christ is not one of an historical figure, but he actually lives today. And so what has happened, brother, is that there are some people who have claimed to be who we are and have stolen our seat. And they are masquerading as us and basically living a very beautiful existence on our identity. And this is where we have a theological difference with these Ashkenazi or European Caucasians who claim to be Jews, but they're not even Semitic people. Where we are the Semitic people, we are the people who produce all of the Semitic people on the planet. We can't even be anti-Semitic unless we're going to be against ourselves. And much of the controversy that's currently floating around comes as a direct result of this book, which is The Secret Relationships Between Blacks and Jews, which is compiled by the research department of the Nation of Islam, wherein all of this book is quoting rabbis, Jewish historians, and scholars, and the book is full of references and footnotes as to exactly where you can find everything that is written in this book. It's not something that somebody has sat down and made up stories. Rabbis, Jewish historians, and scholars are who are quoted in here, and they detail in here the Jewish involvement in the transatlantic enslavement of our people and the profiting from our misery, and how they have systematically worked over many years to prevent the growth and development of Black people whilst masquerading as our friend. But when you do a study of the relationship, you will see that they've never really been our friend, but they have pretended to be a friend, what in the modern parlance they call a frenemy, and really have exploited and used us and abused us. And every time anybody dares to criticize their behavior, we can criticize Black people, we can criticize Asians, we can criticize the Chinese, we can criticize white people generally in terms of so-called Gentiles, but it would appear that Eastern European, white European Jews are sacrosanct and somehow above any form of criticism, even when that criticism is based in pure actual facts, and then you are labeled with the name anti-Semitic or anti-Semitism. And if you do, again, just do a very rudimentary study, Google, you will see that over the years, Michael Jackson was called an anti-Semite. Oprah Winfrey was called an anti-Semite. I think they, at one stage, they even called Jimmy Carter an anti-Semite because he dared to say that he wasn't going to pay a certain amount of money to Israel. Paul Robeson was called an anti-Semite. Malcolm X was called an anti-Semite. The Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey was called an anti-Semite. And I can go on and on and on. Desmond Tutu was called an anti-Semite. And Nelson Mandela was called an anti-Semite. Because anytime any one of us dares to just open our mouth and offer the least criticism of the so-called Jews, these fake Jews who are monopolizing on our legacy and our identity, then this terminology comes out. But, you know, brother, as you rightly pointed out, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been labeled in this way for the last 40 years, but it doesn't change the reality of the truth that has to be told, because it's a day today when everything that's done in the dark must be brought into the light. And that's the time that we're living in. And we have to have the courage today to speak truth. We're not anti-Jews. And there are white Jews, I believe, who are genuine people trying to practice the faith of Judaism. And from our perspective, if that's what they're doing, they are our brothers and sisters in faith. Any person of faith, irrespective of what label they wear, if they are attempting to bow down to do the will of God, and they are keeping faith with Almighty God and his prophets and the scriptures, they are our brothers. We cannot hate somebody based on their faith tradition. That would be foolishness, and that would indeed be bigotry, and that would indeed be a form of racism. So we don't subscribe to that. What we point out is those who say they are Jews, as the scripture says. Leo Muhammad didn't write this. Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan didn't write that scripture. The scripture says they say they are Jews, but they are not Jews. And God says, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan. Thank you for the question, brother.
No problems. I'll open to any of the other panelists if they want to answer.
I think Brother Leo has said much of what I wanted to say, and actually more eloquently. But the thing is, for me, is that we jump into these debates and answering these questions without actually clarifying what we are talking about. So what is a Semite is my first question. And to be anti-Semitic, what does that mean? And it's a similar thing with reparations. You get into conversations with people, oh, I'm not in favor of reparations and so on. And when you actually clarify, you're actually talking about two different things. And so we have this tendency to get on the defensive about this without clarifying the terms in which we're having this dialogue. You know, my daughter is lamenting the fact that Nick Cannon's Wild and Out has been pulled, and now I'm understanding why. And if anything we can learn from this is about the power and agency that these people who call themselves Jews have amassed. And what we can learn is the ways in which they have gone about it, albeit that the result of it is very questionable. But you see, we need to stop this kind of emotional defensiveness around stuff like that and actually begin to have a conversation based on a shared understanding rather than a defensiveness to say, no, we're not that, and you're not the only ones, you got the falasha over here, you got this, you got that. You know, that's really all I would add to what Brother Leo has said. Let's clarify our points of discussion before we have them.
Anything to add, Sister Esther? Not that you're obligated. But
quite simply, we need to build our power base. We need to build our power base. And I know how devastating it can be when one gets accused, not that I've been directly accused of being anti-Semitic, but certainly I have experienced the consequences that come with us trying to assert ourselves, reassert ourselves on this planet. And one of the things that began to happen around when I started getting involved with reparations was even like from the World Conference Against Racism that took place in Durban in 2001, the two issues that really, they say, threatened to split that conference was the question of reparations for slavery as it was framed at the time, and then this question of racism against Palestinians and Zionism being equated to racism. And I was somebody who was just coming up and, you know, getting involved with reparations, and I did not realize that at the time, to be somebody who was championing African reparations was almost, it was like you were saying, I am disregarding the Jewish struggle, who had a record for being the most oppressed people on the planet until that time, where there was this now global recognition from 168 governments around the world that so-called slavery was a crime against humanity and should always have been so. So sometimes you become victimized by this onslaught, not because you're saying anything that could ever be deemed to be anti-Semitic, but it's because you dare to say, my people experienced, whether we say a Holocaust, a Holocaust, you dare to just affirm that. And that in itself could actually have dire consequences for you. And there is no protection and there is no guarantees of non-repetition outside of us also building our power base and having very strong community self-defense at the local and national and international levels. And until we have that, any individual that says something that somebody might take offense to and define as being anti-Semitic, as we know, loses a lot. So there's a lesson in there, in terms of consequences, but how do we avert those consequences? Until we do the work that other people have done, other nations have done, and we build that power base where we are respected around the world, and where an injury to one is truly an injury to all, then we're going to be victims of the power bases of others.
Certainly. You know, this is a quick reference for people. The secret relationship between Blacks and Jews was recently taken off of Amazon, so you can no longer get it on Amazon, but you can get it from store.finalcall.com if you wish to get that specific book entitled The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. When you Google it, you're going to come across mostly attacks against it rather than the actual book itself. Yes,
both volume 1 and volume 2.
Yes. There's 2 volumes. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just pointing that out for anybody who wants to do further research. And then also you can YouTube Professor Tony Martin and the Jewish Onslaught. Yeah. Because he got into some trouble in the 90s for using that book as a history professor at Wellesley College or University in the United States of America. And so he wrote a memoir on his experience, which contains some information about, you know, the history itself, but he also presents on it. So either get the book, The Jewish Onslaught, or YouTube Professor Tony Martin, and you'll see him speak on the subject. And the question was important because if we're going to be going into parliamentary commissions of inquiry, and we're going to be highlighting the British and the French and the Spanish and the Polish and the Russian and all them, at some point this question is going to come up in the exploration of the data associated with the Ma'afa, the Ma'angamezi. And so we have to equip our people with the tools that they need to be able to combat certain propaganda. And so we look forward to doing that more in the future. We have 2 more hands up, and I'm going to make these the last 2 because it is 10:25. Okay, Faye just comes in, so I'm gonna be very kind, and say that these are the last 3 questions. All right, kings and queens. So we're gonna go Yannick, Brother Nat, and then Faye. Yeah. So Yannick, please unmute your mic.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Shakra, and thank you, everybody in the panel for these exceptional presentations.
Brother Yannick, I must say you look very relaxed.
Yes, I had to put myself, in a comfortable place. Thank you.
I understand.
So my question is a little bit provocative. Okay, so I apologize if some people are not comfortable with that, but I would like to know what the panelists think about the option of violence, meaning that in order to gain respect or to reclaim respect, in order to be independent, in order to be free in a way, how do you think violence can be used? And the second question is, as far as you know, in history, when was the last time that a group of people managed to access to their own freedom without using any form of violence? Thank you.
Very provocative question. Anybody can answer.
Well, very provocative.
Well,
indeed. Go ahead,
do you want
Brother
to
Leo.
go first, sister?
No, I was going to talk about there's nothing off the table. You know, we are in a process of going through several options in terms of securing various parts of reparatory justice that need perpetrators kind of involvement, if you like. There's a lot more that we need to do in terms of self and community repairs. We're not at the stage yet where we need to be talking about where we've exhausted every other avenue of intervention, every approach. You know, when Sister Esther talked about securing reparations, there were 7 different options there, and revolution was one, I think the first one, and that's where potentially violence comes in. But before any revolution, you have to have a sense of people working and planning together over a period of time and having a sense of what the goal is, what the destination is, and all roads leading to that, and making that personal sacrifice in order to get there. We are in 2020 way away from that, because we have people not only living in comfort under the system of white supremacy, we have people living in fear. We have people living in fear of signing a petition. We have people living in fear of being recognized and seen on a march. And we have people living in fear of coming to a lockdown, which is actually an act of non-violent civil disobedience. Okay, we are in rebellion on the 1st of Messiah. We are going to a place and occupying it. We're not paying anybody to rent the space. We're not asking anybody's permission. We go there, we occupy, come what may. This is the stage that we're moving to now, and I don't even know if our community understands that. Because when we're trying to engage people, we're saying we're in rebellion and we're in lockdown. But what if the police do this? And do you have to pay for this? And can I do this? And in a rebellion, you don't ask people's permission to do anything. That is the point. So we haven't even conceptualized in 2020. We've got 2 generations of youngers here who have not actually seen us mobilize in any significant way other than marching and rallying. It's 40 years since the uprisings of 1980 and 81 in St. Paul's, Brixton, Toxteth, so on and so forth. So there are whole generations who have no idea, because what BLM have been doing is having static rallies off-road in safe spaces, in parks and grassed areas. So they didn't propose any threat. They didn't make any disruption to anything in doing that. what we are doing on the 1st of Messiah is something significantly radical in terms of what we've been doing over the last 7 years with very slow progress, which is why we've had to raise our game. And it's even been is it an uphill struggle, for want of a better phrase, to get our people to understand what they're buying into by even being there on the 1st of Messiah. I keep saying to people, it's not a street party, it's not a carnival, a festival, or a fete. Okay, it's none of those things. Because you hear music, it don't mean that is that kind of vibration that's going to be going on. When you're in rebellion, when you are blocking roads, when you are stopping traffic, when you are impacting the economy, when you're stopping people going about their everyday, when you're causing congestion for miles back, okay, with economic and other consequences, that's the level of disruption that you have when you're locking down a 1 mile or so area of Brixton. So I don't even know if we quite understand what we need to do to maintain a lockdown and also maintain our stance of non-violent civil disobedience, because that's where we need to be moving to. And if that is not getting us anywhere, I remember Minister Farrakhan talked about justice or else. We need to get to the stage of talking about reparations or else, but not as an empty threat. It's something that we mean it because we're organized, we're amassing ourselves together for power, we're organizing around how we're going to influence and impact on various aspects of people activity that harms the system, that disrupts. We in this country right now, we have been so sedated and seduced by the comforts of the system. A lot of us are not ready for that. So before we even talk about violence, let's be honest with where we're at, and which is why we need to have groundings with our brothers and sisters on the 1st of Messiah. We need to have these conversations about where are you going to go next? What are you prepared to do and sacrifice to secure reparatory justice? Because you can't just come out for one day, and you can't just march one direction and come back, and you can't just pump your fists, and you can't just sloganize. So what is it? And you can't even just sign a petition either. So what is it we as a people are really honestly hand on heart prepared to do? This is what the groundings, reasonings, and conversations are going to be about this coming Saturday. Yeah, family groundings, arts and culture groundings, movement of movements, internationalist solidarity groundings, all kinds of economic and political grounding spaces. Those are the conversations. So you're not just coming here to buy a patty or listen to some tune. Yeah, that's not what it's about. I'll end it there.
Can I just quickly
are we allowed to buy patty and listen to tune though? Is that all right? Can we do that? In
a rebellion, you may find yourself
music
very quickly to occupy space. Cool. So yeah, you may be able to get a patty, but you might have to run with it too.
Okay, that's cool. As long as we can buy the patty still. But yeah, go.
It's a very good question from our brother, and the way in which I would answer that is to say that we live in an extremely violent world.
That's right.
I hope I can get a witness. We live in a world that is full of violence, where people are dying under bombs and rockets and drones and bullets and machetes and you name it. That's happening on a daily basis on our planet. So any of us in this struggle for our total liberation, who think or would allow anybody to dictate to us that we cannot be violent, especially in self-defense of our lives, of our wives and our children, that would be a very, very foolish stance. And so we don't advocate violence and going out to be violent, but we recognize that we live in a violent world and a violent society. So every Black man, woman, and child right now should be engaged in preparing for violence. We should all be training and organizing ourselves in such a way that we anticipate violence. Because if we live in this fool's paradise that somehow violence is going to bypass us, when so many of our brothers and sisters historically have met with violent ends, and we continue to meet with violent ends, why would we allow anybody to suggest to us that, you know, you be fine as long as you are peaceful and non-violent? How can you be non-violent to a person who's been violent to you? And so our attitude towards that particular question is, one, we are never to be the aggressors. We don't go out in search of violence or to do violence to anybody. And as my sister already said, this particular event on Saturday, the 1st of Messiah, is a non-violent, peaceful, direct action in relation to the rebellion. But we reserve the right of self-defense if aggressed upon or attacked. That's the stance. We are not, we must build an army of brothers and sisters who are ready, willing, and able to fight if we are aggressed against. I raised the issue of Black Wall Street because, unfortunately, even though many of those were war veterans, the Black people who lived in Black Wall Street, they didn't appreciate the type of onslaught that was going to come. And even though they fought running battles for some time against the attackers, eventually they were overwhelmed because they even bombed Black Wall Street. They used airplanes and all manner of sophisticated weapons in terms of destroying that civilian community. But we must learn from history and recognize that if we have no defense force, if we have no standing army, if we, both male and female, then we are opening ourselves up to further abuse and further destruction. And so we don't reject the notion of using violence, but we will use violence in the form of self-defense, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Brother Leo. I do want to get the next question, so I did get the impression that Sister Esther did want to say something on this question.
Yeah, I mean,
Esther has been known to be violent.
that slander, that is. Look, history is best qualified to reward our research, and I'm a student of history. And what I do know is that throughout our story, our people have had to exercise self-defense, community self-defense. And I advocate that when that becomes necessary. Of course, we do advocate and we hope to live by all of the time civil disobedience, non-violent, direct action. But I am in touch with, and I do work with networks in Africa, in Abiyala, so-called Americas, where they have to defend themselves in terms of armed struggle. This is not something of the 60s and 90s yesterday, it's today. And I stand in solidarity with my people who have been denied sovereignty and who, in order to defend their very own lives, have to defend their lives. I close with the appropriate quote from Walter Rodney: "Violence aimed at the recovery of human dignity and at equality cannot be judged by the same yardstick as violence aimed at maintenance of discrimination and oppression. We must have the courage to tell ourselves the truth about what our people have had to endure and continue to endure. And we must have the courage to stand with our people who have no choice but to stand up for themselves."
Yes, Ashe. You know, I'm reminded of two things. One, Baba Kwame Ture, who reminds us that for every gain, for every gain that we've made within our movements, we've had to shed our blood. Yeah.
There you go.
And he said even to be able to sit on a bus, we have to shed our blood.
That's right.
Yeah? So you know what I'm saying. So we must, but preparation is key. And to prepare, you have to sacrifice. There's a poem by the Last Poets where they say, "Speak not of revolution until you are prepared to eat rats to survive."
Go on, brother. That's right.
And I'll leave that there. Brother Nat.
Yes, greetings.
Greetings.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask him to keep it brief, bro.
Of course.
If you can, please. Thank you very much.
And I just feel humbled to even share. So, I just want to rise up yourself, brother Shakara. Just indulging more and more with gotkush. And yeah, as you might hear in the background, I'm just at work doing my little plantation job on deliveries. But my question, could I miss this? My question is to all the speakers and hell up all the speakers. I was listening to brother Hakeem Mohammed earlier today on Galaxy, and it's just been a day of wisdom and taking in all the information. But I joined Galaxy about a year ago. One of the missions was to get young people more involved. And I can see from here, not just from the speakers, but the fellow listeners that I see, some from different organizations, but looking at all my elders with the greatest respect, all my aunties and uncles right here, how can we make sure that we continue with the young people to have the next, I don't want to say it like we're saying in the icon, but Sister Dendai, Sister Esther Stamford, Brother Leo Mohammed, how can we make sure, whether it's through mentoring or shadowing, I hate those kind of corporate terms, but being with you whilst you're going to do the legalities, the operations, the coordinating, so that the young people, and I know we can get them from the Nation of Islam, and you know, Brother Leo Mohammed touched on defense, and humbly he didn't even mention or have to how the Nation of Islam do that. That's what they do, and I give thanks for that. But how do we get the young people that are in our Saturday schools, that are at the Pan-African you know, groups, that are already got some level of de-brainwashing, that listen to Galaxy, you know, how can we make sure that they are there to just take on that banter, take on the baton and move it forward? Because I look at Sister Esther and I just think how there best be someone coming through alongside her, because to give that much conviction, passion and articulation, the same with Sister Jendai, Brother Leo and others, how can we make sure, and what can I do to help? I mean, I'll open up for Galaxy Afui to continue that and push for that. We'll open up, and you know, as we do. But
that's a beautiful question, bro. And more than the question, I appreciate the spirit of it, because similar questions I've been asked in very different spirits. So yeah, the way you've asked that question leaves more of a way open to doing some work, and I appreciate that. Any of the panelists, feel free to answer.
I think it is a beautiful question, and one of the things that I've observed over perhaps the last 20 years is, as a community, we start initiatives and we actually are growing some of our own in our Saturday schools, for example. What I'm seeing is that when those young people leave those Saturday schools, we haven't quite got to the place where there's something else for them to go, somewhere else for them to go to invest in and do. They finish the Saturday schools and we still have to go and maybe work for the white man or go to the white man's institution and learn stuff, although there is stuff to be learned from there, but there is no alternative. So we get them to a point, and we kind of come to almost like a dead end. And so that's my first point about how we ensure that kind of institutional pathway for our young people to follow through, because I think it's beyond mentoring, it's beyond all those kind of terms that Brother Nat just used now. And there's also this thing, sometimes elders in our wisdom, sometimes we can be a bit stubborn, and we criticize young people for doing stuff differently to how we do it or how we see it. And so we also have to learn to meet them where they're at and understand what's on top for them in the way that they see the world. Because right now, for example, Black Lives Matter is the thing that is capturing attention of the younger generation. But what we're seeing within that is that those young people aren't necessarily even behind the movement as such. it's an awakening for them in their own way, and they are seeing that it's not, Black Lives Matter is not the solution. The slogan is not the solution, but they're already seeing that there's things that they need to do in terms of self-determination. So for example, a lot of young people came together after the Colston statue was removed in Bristol. They were at these Black Lives Matter so-called protests, because everything in the media that happens now is Black Lives Matter protesters this, Black Lives Matter protesters that. It's not even nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, but I saw them get labeled, yeah? They have formed themselves into an African Caribbean assembly. And what they're talking about and what they stood upon on the plinth and was talking about that day in 7th of June was needing their own government and needing their own self-defense. So that is something that when you hear stuff like that, you've got to harness those young people and work with them on those ideas, because that's pretty much in line with where we need to go as a people in terms of self-determination, self-governance, self-defense. So it's about getting out and about to where they're at as well, and meeting them and being able to cream them off and work with those ideas that they have and provide a space that they can also learn by doing. Because sometimes we just like to talk to people, but we're not putting them in a position where they can actually learn by doing alongside elders. So that's kind of how I'm seeing the most successful forms of how we kind of engage young people and bring them along and succession plan.
It seems that you're muted, Brother Leo.
Sorry, brother. Yeah, I really want to echo what you said, Brother Shaka, and also what Sister Jendai said when you began your intervention by saying that's a beautiful question. That's a beautiful question. So I thank my brother for the question, because you see, brothers and sisters, believe it or not, one of our biggest problems today is that we as the parents, as the elders, are actually not setting any kind of example for our young people. We expect and we want to see our young people develop into this or that, and even we take them to these Saturday schools, and we take them and we feed them the lessons of, you know, Black history and a bit of economics and some other stuff and some sports or whatever. But then they come home and what they observe from us is not really a Sister Esther. It's not that passion that Sister Jendai, it's not that fearlessness. I'll put Shakara into the equation. The young people are looking for fearless warriors in the elders. When they see that, it captures the young people's imagination. Our young people are many of them are very angry with us because they've been given no, you see, it's not, you know, mentoring and it's all a bit too wishy-washy. It's about seeing a people who are warriors, who are willing to fight for what they believe in, and that will capture the imagination of our young, and before you know it, you'll have a whole army of young people who become replicas of the Esthers of this world, the Jendais of this world, the Chakaras of this world. That's what needs to happen. But unfortunately, there is this generation gap, as we've discussed before, and many of us as elders, we're half asleep. We're too busy just kind of maintain our little place or the little thing that we think we have or whatever, and we've forgotten about the struggle and the battle, and we've allowed that gap to develop between us and the youth, and we have to go back out there, and we have to recapture their minds and their hearts and their imagination by them seeing us leading the way. The African tradition says, old men for counsel, young men for war. We've got warriors out there in those streets, but they're missing guidance. And we have the experience to give the guidance, but we can't just talk guidance, we've got to walk guidance. They have to see examples of that fearless, courageous, relentless pursuit of liberation, and that will fire the young people's imagination, as well as the other little things that we're doing in terms of learning about economics, learning about history, learning about this, learning about that, developing their IT skills and all of that. But they've got to understand that they are warriors as well. And you can't really teach that until they actually see an example of that. That's what's missing in the Black community quite often today. We've become very soft and pliable and armchair warriors, and we're not really a good example for the young people. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sister Esther.
Yeah, I mean, Brother Leo and Sister Jendai said it all. My own response was something similar. I would say that we have to be, it's not just about the talk. It's about being the change, living the change, because our younger people do see the difference, even when we're just preaching something, but they're not seeing really that we have the conviction within ourselves about what it is that we're preaching to them. We have to be prepared to learn, new ways of seeing, of being, and also relating, and be prepared to learn from our children, okay? We have to also be humble and as curious as a child, yes, but firm as a rock. And I would like to give credit to some of the younger people that we know will be participating on the 1st of Mosiah for the African Emancipation Day Reparations Rebellion groundings, in particular as part of the Movement of Movements Internationalist Solidarity groundings with the Pan-African Liberation Movement, of which the International Social Movement for African Reparations is a part. So I want to rise up tribe named Atari, and also those from Rhodes Must Fall, Oxford, and many of those who are self-organizing, some of whom have been very much out there in the streets under this banner of Black Lives Matter, but know that they need more. And one of those groups is tribe named Atari, who formerly were calling themselves London Black Lives Matter. And as a result of their own Pan-African orientation, rename themselves a tribe named Atari. Atari is Swahili for impact. So let us recognize those young people. They are going to be involved. And I'm very privileged and blessed to be able to know some of them. And we have to be the person that we all needed when we were younger. Let us remember, remember what it was like to be younger, to be curious, to be a child, to not have questions answered, to have doubts, to have fears, and let us put ourselves in that frame when we're dealing with our young people, so that we're open and we're receptive to them. But the key thing is that we have to make the time, we have to spend the time, and we have to build relationship. We have to, close this gap between us, in our families, in our communities, and that is the repair. And we can all be about that, and we should all be about that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I'm reminded, I had an inspiration some years ago to write a book on this subject, only because I got some experience with it. One of the major issues that we have is passing down activism and generation. I have to pay Brother Leo, threw me in the mix a minute ago, but I can't really receive that without paying homage to my father, because it's through that why I'm here. And I never had a choice, yeah? Like, there was no negotiation in the house about whether you was going to be a freedom fighter or not. That's just what it was, yeah? And it's a very scientific thing. And I think that it's not something that many people have experience with in terms of how to raise children on the road. And so give me 18 years with my one. And if I'm successful, maybe I'll write a book, yeah? You know what I'm saying? But man's got a lot of lessons in terms of the scientific approach to raising a freedom fighter. And it's necessary. It's one of the most important lessons that we need to learn, because it's not something that we've been generally good at doing. The children of freedom fighters generally don't necessarily become freedom fighters and organizers. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like I said, I think I've got some experience of it on one end. So give me 18 years to rack up the experience on the other end, and then we'll see. And then we'll talk. Go ahead.
It's also one of those things where you say not all children of freedom fighters become freedom fighters, but some of them actually rebel against
True.
that freedom fighting thing, and what they see as being the yield and the gain of all these years of being on so-called Liberation Road, and you know, what has been the price, you know?
There's all of that, you know what I'm saying? And one of my son's names is Amaru, after Tupac, because he's born on Tupac's birthday, and Tupac is really an example of that, you know what I'm saying? That struggle to do something, but then born in this whole destruction of the movement that he was born into. There's so many lessons to learn, and it's probably an understudied area of our movement in terms of what happens to the children of organizers and freedom fighters. What are their lives like? What do they go through? Because they're as much a victim of COINTELPRO as their parents. Do you know what I'm saying? In fact, they're the primary targets of COINTELPRO. And so I'm very aware of that in terms of being a father now. I'm saying, and you know, and I think we probably underestimate to the extent to which the children of the organizers of the 80s were targeted by the system over here. You know, it's something that we need to look into. Right, Faye had her hand up, but it looks like she's gone. So we're gonna wrap up here. So I'm gonna ask two things. The first thing I'm gonna ask is for everybody in the chat right now, you have links to various different gotkushTV social media, including our WhatsApp group. So we're asking you all to hit those links and subscribe, follow, join everything where we're there on. The algorithms, kings and queens, because we have to remember that we are using the enemy's social media, and so the enemy will create algorithms to make sure you know, that we don't feature as high on these things, because we're bringing content like this. We're bringing you Sister Jendai, Sister Esther, Brother Leo, right, and these things. So we're asking you to follow us on all social media and like everything when we put out. Don't even, before you even read it, just like it. When you see it, just like it up and share it up and all them something there. Make it spread far and wide, so that we can raise the voices of our warrior activists in our community, because we see it as our responsibility. And for as long as Gotkush exists, you will see and hear voices, like this. It is our responsibility to profile these voices. And so we want you to make sure that you hit all of the links, and join our WhatsApp group so you can get the real-time updates. Whenever we release something, we're going to post it there. It's not only we posting there, so you're not going to get no millions of messages from all kind of things and people promoting everything. Not to down those WhatsApp groups, but you know, they're not always productive in that kind of way. So you can keep in touch with us all. So they're all there, kings and queens. That's Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the WhatsApp group. The links are in the chat right now. So do you know, check that out. I want to send a special shout out to Sister Dr. Sandra Richards, who's joined us. She's in between Nassau and Barbados. So I don't even know where she's there right now. But it's an honor to have you in the building, Sister Dr. Sandra Richards. Thank you for joining us. And finally, I do want to give our panel the opportunity to say a last word and give people the information as regards to the groundings, on the 1st of Messiah, and also the general details of how to stay in touch with the Sutton Angamizi campaign and the Emancipation Day Reparations March.
Okay, I shall start by thank you, Shakara. I shall start by making an invitation to everyone to join us on the 1st of Messiah around the occupied area in Brixton, and to really come there seeing yourself not as an observer, but as a participant and as a rebel. We are locking down road from 7 a.m. and we are pouring our libation at 9 a.m. thereabouts, and our program will begin around 11. There are 5 or 6 different groundings areas which will be signed. If you walk up and down Brixton Road, you'll see some bright green, we call it luminous green signs with the different groundings areas: family groundings, arts and culture, Ma'atubuntu Jama, political economic groundings, movement of movements, international groundings, and so on. And so we need people there to hold space. We need people to maintain their composure and not to respond to provocation, which we will may experience. So it's just to be aware, because they got us in a place where they know exactly how to play us. Them know so when I like them. And so we don't want to present a situation where we play into anybody's hands and they have us playing like a violin in terms of how we behave and how we respond. So come ready for the long haul, you know. Come ready with your cushion, your folding chair, them thing there, your vuvuzela, your drum, them thing there, your food and your drink, because we cannot guarantee that there's anything to buy that you can eat, okay? And bring the pictures of your ancestors, those in your personal line, those in our history who represent resistance, rebellion, and revolution in the name of African liberation, because we are going to celebrate our ancestors. Spread the word. Go to the GoFundMe.com/F/Reparations March 2020 if you wish to make a contribution, because this thing, as much as we now pay them to be there, it's costing us a lot to promote and to prepare for it as an all-weather occupation and lockdown. So we are uniting to stop the Maangamizi for our very survival. Planet repairs now. That is the theme. And please come ready to engage in the groundings and evoke the spirit of our ancestors when we begin to talk about where we're going to go next with our quest for reparatory justice and what you are prepared to do, and not be pointing fingers at small committees of people that organize stuff. It's about us. Reparations by our grassroots people's power, liberty, or death. Thank you.
Give thanks. If there's anything to add, feel free, but don't feel like you have to.
I just wanted to give the contact details for the Stop the Maangamizi We Charge Genocide Ecocide campaign. It is Stop the Maangamizi, spelt MAANGAMIZI.com. That's the email. Website, and the email is stopthemangamizi@gmail.com. Contact number is 07956 431 498. And that's the main thing I wanted to say. Please, there's still time to sign and share the petition. We've got, I believe it's not quite 5,000 yet online. For some reason, people do not like to sign that petition online. Last year, we handed in nearly 17,500 signatures, but these were largely due to paper, people signing paper copies. But just psychologically, when people look and they see, oh, so few people, it doesn't look good. So we're asking people to still sign that, because it is when whoever the powers that be so-called look and they say, okay, well, this is clearly not an issue that your community support you with. Yeah. And so really numbers do matter. Numbers do matter. And it is about, you know, put your name there, show us, be of support, because this is not about us. This is really about us just picking up a baton and just continuing to amplify the voices of those who have gone before us. And this is really about all of us and the struggle that we have, even in terms of this commission of inquiry. That is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. And it is going to be a useful means to an end in terms of us getting the space to be able to build our power, because the more and more this is going to be discussed in society, and there's links made between what's happening in our communities in terms of the decimation of our communities and our history of Maangamizi, then that is going to make a huge difference in the society at large. So we need reparations, planet repairs to be a household word. And it no longer must be like out there, it must be like center stage in terms of public policy and so forth, in terms of engagement going forward. But we require you all to help with that, okay? and to be raising, linking your own existing organizing and so forth to reparations if you're not doing it already. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll give you the opportunity, Brother Leo.
Yes, sir. So greetings, family. Once again, just to remind you that we have security volunteer meetings on a Monday. In fact, tomorrow is the very last one. So the number that you need to call is 0773 5511 683. So that's 0773 551 1683, and that number is in the chat at the present time. So if you would like to attend the final meeting tomorrow, where you can come to volunteer to be security, stewarding, and or first aid, we meet in Windrush Square each Monday, tomorrow being the last one, between 7 and 9 p.m. So please come along, brothers and sisters. We need all of the help that we can get, because again, this is a peaceful, non-violent, direct action that we're taking, and we need our own stewards to police our own event in order to encourage our people to behave in an appropriate and proper way, and to lock down Brixton and not to allow anyone to come and cause a nuisance in the place. So it's critically important that we have that type of presence and that type of security. So, you know, please take note of that number and give us a call. All right, but that's basically all I wanted to say, just to really, once again, just to thank you, Brother Shakara, and also gotkushTV. And obviously I want to thank my two wonderful queens, sisters, powerful. So I had to be in the middle of the two of them. And you know, I think you did a fantastic job. This has actually been quite a marathon as well. And just to say to the brothers and sisters who are observing this, you see, again, you know, honestly, you've got to understand what it's going to take for us to be liberated. And sometimes it's going to take 6-hour meetings. Sometimes it's going to be 8-hour meetings. Sometimes it's going to be all-night gatherings. But that's what it's going to take. You know, back in the day, we would go to the rave and spend all of that time. Now is the time for us to spend that time more productively in terms of coming together, uniting, and building that movement that will set all of us free, and in particular, our unborn generations yet to come. So thank you so much, all of you, for tuning in, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share today.
Thank you very much, Brother Leo. And just for anybody who's concerned, you can do both, yeah? So every now and then I spend all night at the dance hall, and then every now and then I spend all night at a meeting. Just so it go, you know what I'm saying? You have to balance out the thing, you know what I mean? But yeah, we give thanks, kings and queens. Thank you very much, Sister Jendai, Brother Leo, Sister Esther, for joining us. No doubt we'll be doing this again at some point. One of the things that I'm very, very conscious of is that in spite of all of our efforts, the reparations consciousness of our people is still extremely low. And so we need to find more effective means outside of just the movement or the various different organizations, just raising our people's understanding of the concept from our own perspective. And so it's mad. Like, say again?
Open to ideas, my brother.
Yes, no, it's mad interacting with people, and some of the same arguments that you hear is crazy. So yeah, we have to look into that as a media platform and how we can assist. But we'll definitely be doing that, because gotkushTV will be down there on the 1st of Messiah, documenting everything, and you will see all of the proceedings and what takes place. You know, with regards to the 1st of Messiah on that day, kings and queens. And we'll see you all on the 1st of Messiah, kings and queens, as we open up the month of Messiah in fine style, remembering that this year is the 100th year anniversary of the International Convention of the Negro Peoples of the World, when the red, black, and green flag was given to us. And we want to hail up in relation to the Women of Power Summit, the fact that many of the leading activists of the Garvey movement were actual women. Yeah, the more prominent members. In fact, its most active auxiliary was an auxiliary, the Black Cross Nurses, that was made up of women. And so we want to affirm that as we go into the month of Messiah, that it is our duty as African men to be in balance, in harmony, and in complementarity with our women, kings and queens, in a liberation effort, a mutual liberation effort in leadership and soldierhood and warriorship and all these things, kings and queens. This is gotkushTV, your #1 Black conscious media platform coming out of the UK. We want to encourage you to stay tuned to gotkushTV, and always remember, you ain't got nothing if you ain't got kush.